You're listening to the Complete Human podcast, hosted by co-founders Janna and Evan DeMarco. We share authentic conversations about wellness, longevity, personal growth, and biooptimization, along with inspiring stories that encourage community and social responsibility. We hope you enjoy this episode.
All right, Joe. So you and I actually met, and this was kind of a funny story. Last year at the World Championships in Tahoe, I had like 15 podcasts that day, and I just finished interviewing Justin Batt from Daddy Saturday, and we're kind of standing around. And I was like, I had to run off in a couple minutes to get to a different interview, and he's like, "Hey, do you know Joe?" I'm like, "No, I don't know Joe." And so, he's like, "Hey, Evan, meet Joe. Joe, meet Evan." I'm like, "Hey, Joe, nice to meet you." And then like you were running off to a different thing. I had to go to a different thing, and I'm walking away. I'm like, "Who's Joe?" And then the next morning was the start of the race, and some woman introduced, founder and CEO of Spartan, Joe. And up walks Joe, and I'm like, Jesus, and I kind of felt like it was one of those weird things. It's like, it would be like being the biggest Rolling Stones fan, but never seeing who Mick Jagger was, and then having a conversation with him, and then watching him walk on stage the next day. I'm like, oh, okay.
I'm nobody. I just had the crazy idea in the beginning to do this thing. And then honestly, the teams took it from there and they figured it all out. So I'm happy to be behind the scenes. If I had my way, I would not be doing social media. I would not be doing interviews like this. But I tried to put different front people out front in the very beginning, and it just doesn't work. It's got to be in my opinion, it's got to be the person that owns the company.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're the one with the vision, right? I think it'd be the same thing as, Steve Jobs appointing some mail clerk guy to stand up in front of a group of people with a black turtleneck and try to explain the vision of the company.
Hard to do.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Tahoe, that was in September, right?
Yeah.
That was my first Spartan race ever, was there. And that was fun. And that's quite a community. That was my first ever experience with Spartan and just how the whole community is, and I thought it was just super organized, and we had a really good time. I mean, we met a lot of friends and just tons of support there.
Thank you for that. Yeah, no, it's a great community. It's global. It's 45 countries plus. After that, we acquired our competitor, Tough Mudder, which was a great thing at the time, but then when COVID hit, it was like an anchor around our necks.
Right.
But we're figuring it out. Once we come out of COVID, I think we'll be a lot stronger because of it, but the community is fantastic. The sport is incredible. I think it changes people. I mean, the emails I get on a daily basis are just unbelievable. You guys experienced it firsthand?
You didn't get to experience the lake at the top of
No, I think it was so cold. They said we don't want people on the lake this year because it was too cold.
They were worried. I remember now. They were specifically worried about you. They had
now things make a little bit more sense.
Yeah, they were like, hey, we're just going to shut it for like 10 minutes when she's coming through.
Just for this one chick.
Yeah, we'll open it back up. But just for her ego's sake, we'll say that we shut it for everybody.
Exactly. Oh, why does that make so much sense?
It really does. Do you know how much money I had to pay for them to do that?
Although I do remember, I thought I did see some people swimming in it. So were those individuals that just decided, I don't care what the temperatures are, this is where I'm testing my mental strength here?
Those were seals that we painted with numbers on them. Yeah, there's no humans there. I'm kidding. No, there were people that wanted to go in anyway, I guess.
Gotcha. Wow.
Well, let's talk. So, I think there's so much history with what you've done. So I want to give our listeners who probably know a lot about you, especially since we kind of run in very CrossFit circles and everybody's very aware of the Spartan race, but give us a little bit of background about where the whole Spartan concept came from and how it's grown to be what it is today.
Sure. So, I mean, you got to go back to the 1970s. My mom did not like the neighborhood we were living up in. She divorced my dad. The neighborhood was ground zero for Goodfellas. It was all organized crime. And as a young person, my friends, me, my sister, the narrative was if you wanted to survive and thrive here, you had to do bad things and probably do some time in jail. I mean, it was a crazy place. The movie Goodfellas depicts it really well. My mom finds yoga, meditation, health food, becomes vegan way before there was a Whole Foods or a Yoga Journal magazine. And probably only one health food store in all of New York or East Coast at that point. And she just starts to instill this idea that, like, you got to be healthy. You got to eat healthy. It was all crazy talk. Like, didn't even make sense. I wanted raviolis, cannoli, sausage and peppers. Well, I don't know. But you know, she continued to pave that path against the grain for many, many, many years. And I think Spartan is just a confluence of yogi, right? Vegan, although, you know, we understand people have their diets that they stick to. We just recommend limited animal protein. Certainly eliminate as much processed foods as you can. So a vegan slant, yogi, mobster, Spartan, you know, that's just all mashed together. And you know, we ask people to get dirty because we've been told to stay clean our whole lives. Let's get dirty. Let's crawl under barbed wire because we've been told to, you know, steer clear of glass and barbed wire and anything that might hurt you. Mm-hmm. Climb ropes, very military inspired. We want it legit, like a sport. And so I think it was all that. And this very clear understanding I had at a young age, probably from mom or dad, that transformation occurs doing hard shit. When you do hard shit, look, I mean, this is going to sound silly, but like, that's why back then, right, you had to go to jail if you wanted to be part of one of these organized crime families, right? You had to go do some time. You had to kill somebody, right? If you wanted to be a made man, like, and so hard shit transformed people in a bad way, but also in a good way. You don't get transformed sitting on a couch watching Netflix, eating popcorn. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen listening to a podcast. It doesn't happen reading a book. You have to do something hard. And that might be sitting and meditating for 24 hours or 24 days. It might be fasting for a week or 2 or 3. Taking cold showers, sitting in a sauna for 3 hours. In our case, it's coming out and competing against millions of people on a course that really rattles your brain. It's unbelievable.
It does. And I remember the funny thing is I did 2018 World Championship, and so Anders and Doug of Barbell Shrugged challenged me in kind of like this no holds barred, winner take all, Spartan beast. So I called Callie Bundy. I'm like, hey, let's go do this. And she's like, have you ever done a Spartan before? I'm like, no, but I've seen them on TV. How hard can they be? And she just laughs at me. She's like, okay. So, you know, here we are at Spartan Tahoe. And I remember it was freezing that morning, and we just start up that hill. And I got about halfway up the hill, and I'm like, okay, I'm an asshole. Like, it's hard. But it was so much fun. And that's the thing. Like, you created... You know, I think in a world where going to the gym has just become a fad, where eating is just a fad, like you created a community. It's like, it doesn't matter if you finish in 3 hours or 10 hours. It's just the fact that you're out there doing it. And I remember looking at people on the course being so supportive of everybody. It wasn't a competition against the person next to you. You were supporting that person. It was a competition against yourself.
And I think that's where probably the addiction comes from, right? Is they're addicted to the mental strength that they find. They're digging deep. And that's what I found through it too. Before my first Spartan race, I asked a few friends, like, how do I prepare for this? And I mostly do CrossFit. They're like, okay, no, you'll be fine. If you mostly do CrossFit, you should be all right. So I'm like, okay, cool. But it's the endurance. It's like the mental pushing through when you want to stop. It's keeping on going. And I think that's where the addiction comes through, is you get addicted to this overcoming and pushing through. And that's what I kind of got out of it during my race.
Yeah, you know, we have a podcast as well, Spartan Up. And so we get these scientists, as I'm sure you guys do. And it was really interesting to me. I spoke to Andrew Huberman recently out of Stanford, and he said most of the dopamine, most of the serotonin, most of these wonderful brain chemicals get released not at the finish line of doing hard things, but during the process, right? So a boxer that is leading up to a big fight, those 30, 60, 90, 100 days, they're getting just bombarded with great brain chemicals all the way. Or you're building a business, or you're growing a child in your belly, or whatever it may be. Like, the brain is releasing all these wonderful chemicals during the process. And so it's interesting to know that, because we like to say, all of us, you guys, me, like, enjoy the process. Don't worry about the outcome. And I think science and biology show that we really need to enjoy the process. Like, that's what it's about. And for us, it's a cult. It's a cult. And not only do you get to enjoy the process, not only do you get to brag about, the finisher medal, but you get to meet really cool people. You get to define yourself as a Spartan. Who doesn't want to be defined as a Spartan, right?
Totally.
Right? Like I that's a great word. It means so much. And people will lend a hand. They'll help you. They'll lean in for you. And when there's shared suffering, when you do something like this together, you build bonds for life.
Totally.
We made one of our best friends through our first Spartan race. He actually injured his leg, and I said, "This is my first one. I think this was like at a dinner meeting the night prior or something." And we met for the first time, and I said, I'm so nervous. This is my first one. I have no idea what to expect. And he was like, you know what? I hurt my leg, but I see the whole group you're with. You guys are good people. This is all your first time. I'm going to do this with you. And so even with an injured leg, he decided to join the race and go through it with us and help us through it, and kind of coach us. And now he's a lifelong friend of ours, or a good friend of ours. So
shout out to Mo.
Shout out to Mo.
I hear that more often than not. I hear it everywhere across the world. So if I could get paid, if our payment at the company were the emails we received, like, hey, I met my wife, I met my husband, I lost 100 pounds, I'm back with my wife, I gave up drugs, I'm no longer drinking, like the list goes on and on for hundreds of thousands of emails. If that was currency, I'd be the richest guy alive.
That's awesome.
I love that.
So, Joe, I think, we could talk to you about the physical aspects of Spartan all day long, but I think one of the things that you've really kind of carved out as a niche is really focusing on mental fortitude, right? Like, this is all mental. And so we kind of want to talk to you about that is how do you encourage people to really dig deep? And you said it's not sitting on the couch, it's not listening to a podcast. What are your tips and tricks? What's your protocol for making sure that the mental fortitude is the thing that's driving our physical health?
A couple of things. One is the brain lives inside the body. Body is basically a swimming pool. It's got a pump, the heart, it's got filters, the lungs, the kidney, liver. And you want to keep that pool clean because the brain lives inside of it. So assuming you're eating well and you're sweating and you're working out and you got your pump running, your brain will be more optimal. Very hard to build resiliency without a physical component, right? We said that. You got to do something hard physically. When you're doing something hard physically, what ends up happening is you go back and forth between the body and the mind. Mind wants to give up, body's got to fight it off and push through. Body wants to give up, mind's got to fight it off, right? There's constantly something chirping. I don't know the saying, but there's a Brazilian saying where there's like two crickets, in your head, right? One, that's just, quit. Let's get back to comfort. Let's go grab a burger and hit the couch. And then the other cricket that's like, come on, we got to do this. We got to fight through. And so it's the body and the mind fighting each other. And what I tell young children and adults and moms, Marines, everybody is it's really just one foot in front of the other. Easier said than done. Much easier when there's 9,000 people around, right? We could be stretched way further than we think we can, and we're really just limited by by what people tell us, what we think is normal. And so I guess that's what Spartan is. That's what we are. Is we question everything. It's why is that the way? Why?
Do you think it's easier for kids? Because I think back to, I wrestled, I played football, I was, a high school and collegiate athlete. But back then, if someone told me, like, we're going to go do this, I'm like, yeah, no big deal. Now as an adult, you start to think about, like, well, 50 miles is a lot of miles. Like we put our mental blocks in front of ourselves, not because of physical limitations, but just maybe because of age.
I'm going to answer that question really succinctly. A couple thoughts on it. I'm just looking for a text.
Also, how old were these kids?
These kids ranged from 7 years old, my youngest daughter, to 17 years old. And, I think a couple things. I think one is traditional, you're going to flip out when you hear this. Traditional sports, I think in some ways make kids fragile. What I mean by that is I can't tell you how many parents and how many coaches have said to me, oh, I don't really want to send them to the farm because they might get hurt. And my answer is, okay, if hiking a mountain, climbing ropes, and doing push-ups is going to get them hurt, we're not doing that sport correctly. Something is wrong, right? They're too delicate. So, and I understand we need some rest. Hang on, I got to find. So unbeknownst to me, the kids had their phones at night. I wasn't paying attention because I just wasn't thinking that. I thought they were having so much fun with me. Obviously, I'm being facetious, that everything was fine. But in reality, at night, what they were doing is texting their parents and texting their friends in any way they could to get the hell out of Dodge. How were they going to escape? And I can't find the text. You would love these texts. Basically, oh, here we go. I got it. Okay, you ready? So this is great. So at the end of the camp, I was able to get the text from one of the parents who's a friend. I want to go home. Parent, you can do this. Can I leave on Saturday or Sunday? I'm already so tired and done. I'm done. The coaches are mean. All we get to do all day long is work, and then we have to go on a cold river. It sucks here. Get me home immediately. Parent, is it harder than a 7-minute Peloton ride? Because they're not taking the day.
That's awesome.
This place is hell. You try carrying 35-pound rocks up and down the mountain all day long, every day. This is worse than prison. I don't know how the kid knows how bad prison is. Please, I'm desperate. Lie to Joe if you have to and pick me up as soon as possible. So those are the kind of texts, unbeknownst to me, that were being sent out. Now, the reality is, when you said, is it harder for kids or harder for adults? If the parents stayed out of it and didn't come pick them up, the kid has no choice. The kid's going to get it done. Mm-hmm. Adults have a choice. So I would say it's easier for kids if the parents stay out of it. It's harder for kids if the parents swoop in like we all do and protect them from the thing we really shouldn't be protecting them from. Like, I could see if there was a pterodactyl attacking your kid, you should like get involved, right? Or if God forbid, there's a vehicle that's like, yes, you should get involved, but like, otherwise, let the kids suffer. Suffering's good.
Is this part of the same mentality that, parents are clamoring for participation ribbons at field day in elementary school? Like, have we forgotten that success comes at the end of hard work, and subsequently then we level the playing field and say, well, it doesn't matter how hard you work, you're still going to be rewarded for that apathy?
No doubt about it. And the kid knows. If the kid gets a participation trophy or medal, the kid knows they didn't win, they didn't do the work. The trick is just put the kid through really hard shit. I had another neurosurgeon on the phone, and the neurosurgeon told the kids while they were sending those texts unbeknownst to me, kids, I know you're crying, because they were crying every day. This was not a camp where it got better. It got worse. Okay? The only thing, and some of the kids said it, when I realized, you're going to love this. This is right out of Viktor Frankl, World War II, prisoner of war camp. When I realized I couldn't change my situation, I changed myself. We heard that from a number of kids, which is amazing, right? Because
That's
then
cool.
we know we got magic going on. But the kids fought through somehow. They woke up earlier and earlier, and they just got it done. They got it done.
That's awesome. So when are you hosting adult camps?
Can we come?
Last week when I tried the 7-day program, a bunch of adults showed up. They quit within 12 hours.
Really?
Mm.
Yeah. First adult to quit, which if I showed you a picture of him, you would say, no way, that guy's an animal. He's going to win. He's going to win the thing. He said, there's no air conditioning here. I can't do it.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
It's kind of like SEAL training, right? It's, you get your dropped on request and people are just like, I can't deal with it. But that's mental, right? It's all mental.
It's all mental. Well, it's the physicality component presses up against your brain and just tells you got to stop. You got to get away from this discomfort. We're dying. Tell your parents to lie to Joe. Do whatever you have to do. Get out of here. Code red. Houston, we have a problem. I mean, that's what's going on in your brain. And you got to tell your brain, deep breath, 5 more steps, 3 more steps. Like I tell everybody, guys, I've had 10,000 people at least come up to me over 20 years and quit and then regret it. When you're about to quit, the stuff coming out of your mouth that you're telling me is all bullshit. It just doesn't sound like bullshit to you. You think it's logical and everything else. It's all bullshit. You need to just listen to me and follow my instructions when that happens. You're just having a malfunction of your software at that point. And some of them listen and some of them don't.
So that's an interesting segue, right? Because right now people are dealing with some serious shit with COVID. I know you guys are, obviously, with the business. We're all kind of dealing with this. Where does the mental fortitude, that you've spent so long kind of cultivating, really, play in a world where everybody's just curious about, like, what do I do, right? Do I go outside? Do I put a mask on? Do I, and it's not a political issue, but right now there's a very real virus that's having an impact in our world. How do we mentally overcome that?
Well, I think that when I look at the journey of success, I've mapped this out, like I said, for 20 years. You go into the valley of death, whether you're Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, a mom with 4 kids. You go into the valley of death and you start questioning everything, and people start piling on and saying, I told you not to marry that guy. I told you not to have so many kids. I told you not to start an electric car company, right? And you're questioning yourself. Your employees are quitting. Your competition is start like everything that can go wrong goes wrong. The people that can dig in at that moment have one attribute that I believe helps them get through that valley of death, and that is they have a different frame of reference. What I mean by that is if they grew up in Siberia and had very little food, very little water, and froze for most of their childhood, they don't really give a fuck that people are saying, hey, I told you not to start an electric car company. You know what I mean? They've had tough times that they can go back to in their brain. And they could say, well, it's not as bad as that. The person that grew up on Park Avenue with a silver spoon that was bubble wrapped, when the times get tough, they have nowhere to reference in their brain. This is a disaster. They have to tap out. So not all of us grew up in Siberia. And so what I'm a proponent of is we have to manufacture adversity. We have to do some burpees, take some cold showers, crawl under barbed wire. We got to do some hard shit so that we can reference that when times get tough. And by the way, we are all guaranteed tough times. Nobody gets out alive. That's the deal.
Very true. So then the ultimate answer is reframing adversity or reframing our position in the world to always say, like, well, it could be worse.
That's my favorite saying. That's my saying. You stole my saying. It could be worse. I say it all the time. And when I run out of things to say that against, right, I just say, well, I could be dead.
There you go.
Great point.
So when you get to that point where you've run out of things to say it could be worse about, does that mean that you go into a cave and come up with something really diabolical for like the next World Championships?
Yes. I think about you guys and I'm like, how do we make that water even colder?
well, let's talk a little bit about World Championships.
For me only though, right?
Hey, I did it and the funny thing is I did it and I got kicked in the nuts while I was in that pond at the top of Lake Tahoe. So,
wait, like literally? Or?
Yeah. So I was trying to catch up to Anders, who was swimming ahead of me. And all of a sudden, like I cut behind this person just right in the,
sorry.
And luckily, the best thing about that is they were already up in my stomach anyway from being in water that cold. So it didn't, it wasn't that traumatic of an experience. Joe, so World Championships are slated for Abu Dhabi this year, right?
We are moving it because of COVID. It's now in Sparta, Greece in November. So if you want to come to Sparta, assuming they allow U.S. citizens to Sparta, we're doing it in Sparta.
That's cool. So what's the likelihood with COVID?
Well, I'm going. Even if I have to swim there, I'll be there. So you guys let me know if you want to come. We got extra oxygen tanks. We got some scuba suits.
Cool.
I love it.
She just learned to scuba a little bit ago, so that should work. How many people are showing up? How many people are registered at this point?
Oh, there'll be at least 6,000 to that event in Sparta.
Totally.
Wow. That's wonderful. So I have a question. I heard a rumor that you carry around a kettlebell with you everywhere you go. Is this true?
Yes, mostly when I travel. So if I'm, like I just had to go get the kids some food, I didn't carry it with me there. But if I'm traveling, if I'm about to go to Sparta, Greece or go somewhere, and I travel a lot pre-COVID, I'm carrying that kettlebell everywhere.
And do they ever think it's a weapon?
They do. I've lost dozens of them because they confiscate them, or they lose them, or they steal them. So it's been a bit of a nightmare to deal with this crazy obsession I have with carrying around a kettlebell. It's not as easy as it sounds.
Yeah.
So do you have like kettlebells on auto ship that just show up, 3 a month to your house?
Yeah, exactly. I'm the only member of a club that just sends me a new kettlebell every week.
I'd love to know the mindset and the reasoning behind this. Very fascinating. I don't know many people who would do that.
Well, it's my burden, right? I got to carry that burden. That's my cross. And there was a guy that I helped lose a bunch of weight, and I told him, as you lose weight, I'll gain. As you lose weight, I'll gain weight. I'll carry weight with me, and that's how it came about, and it just never stopped.
Fascinating.
That is. I like that story.
Yeah. I mean, it's free. It's free, right? Because if I'm walking through airports for 3 hours today, I'm carrying, 45 pounds.
Right.
Joe, are you the type of person that goes on vacation and lays on a beach? Because you don't seem wired that way. You seem like the type of, like, you just have to push the envelope day in and day out. That's your cross.
Nonstop. I gotta keep going. Nonstop. Never taking a vacation. I remember when I had my first business, I took one day off, and I put my sister in charge of my business, my younger sister. And one day I took off, and I came back. I mean, literally, it's not even a bullshit story. It was probably 12 years. It was one day in 12 years, okay? With that swimming pool construction business I had at a young age. She fired half my staff. Right? So I probably have PTSD from vacations. I don't know. I don't take vacations.
Well, you get to travel the world anyway, right?
Life is a vacation, is what I tell my wife. Why do we need a vacation? We're living a vacation.
Good point. So what's next, right? We're coming out of COVID. We're hopefully going to Sparta. Are we doing the podcast Media Fest again this year?
Yeah, if people are willing to come to Sparta, absolutely. But I'm also doing in October, I'm doing a bubble where I'm bringing in a bunch of athletes from around the world to compete on the farm. So I might do a media fest on the farm if folks are willing to come in.
Cool.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, that would. I'd be down to go.
We need to take you to Greece, though.
That doesn't sound half bad either. Like that.
So what's next, right? We've got COVID. Obviously, things have gone a little bit more digital in the age of COVID. What's your expectation for the business and for the events kind of coming out of this? And what do you guys see forecasting in 2021 and beyond?
I just want to survive. I mean, lots of the world has opened up for us already, but not the United States. And we need the U.S. to open up and allow us to put on events. I'm literally waiting on the government. I got my personal feelings towards COVID. People hate me when I say this, but I think you got to let it loose. I think, sure, wear your mask, be protective, wash your hands, do all those things. But sitting in a house and being afraid of this thing it's got unintended negative consequences. So let's get out and get it over with.
Well, that's a mindset issue, right? And how long are we going to be reactionary to this? And how long are we going to be a society that's fearful of everything? Like we're seeing it now where you have this polarizing ideology where people are hunkered down in their homes, afraid to do anything. And then you have the people who are like, fuck it, I don't care anymore. And then they're just going out and being cavalier. Is there a middle ground that we should be playing with in this to help eradicate it, but still not let it control our lives?
Well, I love Sweden. I love what Sweden did. Granted, Swedes are a lot healthier than we are, but we are a fat, unhealthy mess here in this country. Only 12% of us in the United States are metabolically healthy, so that's not the case in Sweden. But Sweden saw some good results just by practicing some common sense.
By herd immunity.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, I guess.
Yeah.
See what happens. But just cross our fingers.
Mm-hmm.
Our clean fingers.
Right. Naturally.
So 22, hopefully the U.S. opens, then you guys kind of get back on schedule. And then, any big plans for Spartan in the coming year?
Well, we gotta finish the integration with Tough Mudder. We bought Tough Mudder. We've got Spartan Trail. We've got Spartan Deco, which is more for the gym set, indoor, clean, competition, kids, books. I wrote a parenting book. We're going to come out in January with that. working on a television show, a couple of documentaries. Yeah.
So I don't know if you know this, but I have another podcast property called Single Parents Daily as a single parent. And, my big focus is supporting single parents in this world. So, anything that we can do to help our kids, especially with resiliency, with mindset, kids of divorce, I think need that more than anybody, but obviously all kids need that. So would love to chat with you more about that book.
I would love it. I'd love it anytime, but you got a little taste of it with the, matter of fact, when I release in the next week, I think next Wednesday I might release, or the week Wednesday after, I'm releasing the video of the kids camps that I described to you. I would love, maybe you could help push that out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that'd be an insane thing to watch. There's actually video evidence of this.
Oh, I videotaped the whole thing because
fantastic.
just in case the kids lied and said Joe did this or Joe did that. I wanted it all on tape.
That's great.
Yeah. Is there a potential for like a child abuse lawsuit after all of this?
We're writing texts like, I'm sure this camp is illegal, Mom. Get me out of here.
Right.
These guys are crazy.
It's funny. I grew up in Colorado, and kind of in a farm community, and I had friends that they were farmers' kids, right? And from the moment they could walk, they were working. That's just, they understood work ethic, and I think that we've forgotten that, right? Like we've forgotten that. Yeah, it's not just video games and Xbox and juice boxes. It's like you gotta work.
It also highlights the importance of making that a priority early in their life, right? Because you're forming that basis moving forward once they grow up.
Well, I think here's the other thing too. I mean, you talk about the mind-body connection, but it's a brain-derived neurotropic factor. How many kids right now are not getting the necessary educational benefits from exercise that we did? It's like your brain will not grow unless you're working out and sitting in front of a.
Oh, we had a sneeze. Sorry, my editor next to me has COVID apparently. You could see why everybody started saying like 100 years ago, God bless you, right? You hear a sneeze, you're like, oh, he's dead.
Wasn't the origins of that is God bless you came out of like the plague, because prior to that people said congratulations, they thought you were exercising your demons, and then the plague hits, you start sneezing, people are like, you're gonna die, God bless you.
You're dead, God bless you, you're gone. So he's gone.
I learned something new today.
You need a new editor. The good news is with we don't have any brain nourishment issues with our camp. Kids are getting lots of blood flow. Those connections are being made in the brain, so we're crushing it.
Cool.
Love it.
Well, I can't wait to see this, and definitely we will share that with you.
We need help pushing that out. I'm sure it's going to be shocking to the world because there's no normal human being that would have done this.
Right. So do these kids know what they're signing up for? Or is it kind of like, hey, we're going to go to camp for a week or two. We're going to get outside.
There's a lot of texts that say, we were tricked. we heard summer camp. This is summer house. This is prison. This is military.
Fishing and building teepees.
No, none of that.
I would love to send my daughter to one of your camps. I don't think my ex-wife would go for it, but screw it. Let's do it anyway.
I would love to have them. I'll take any kid.
Cool.
That's awesome.
What else?
I'm good if you guys are good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Joe, thank you so much. I think we wanted to talk to you about resiliency, right? You seem to kind of have cornered the market on mental fortitude, on resiliency, and it all boils down to something that you touched on, which is it could be worse and do hard shit. And, that's pretty
It's really
awesome.
simple. We're making it more complicated so that we could sell books and have people listen to our podcasts and all kinds of stuff. The human, our species wants like some kind of biohack. For like Harvard Business Review put out a book on building resiliency. I was like, okay, I'll grab the book, but like that's not going to do it. Unless that book weighs 423 pounds and I got to drag it around, that's not doing it.
Right.
So something interesting, which we love, is I fucking hate the term biohack. Like, and I say this all the time. When has hacking ever been a good thing, right? Like hacking is a shortcut. We talk about biooptimization, and that's like small changes that equal big, big results in the long run. But it's number one of our platform is mental fortitude, right? Like unless you get this shit straight up here, nothing's ever going to work out after that.
Agree 1,000%. By the way, I've been looking at my lunch this whole time. I am building fortitude. So I'm trying I'm dying to dig in and start eating this
He's
thing.
hungry.
You guys help me. You guys help me.
It's intermittent fasting.
Exactly.
Joe, thank you so much for being a part of the Complete Human Show. Couldn't thank you enough for taking the time. I know you're busy and
hungry.
And hungry, yes. And we apologize to your stomach.
This particular episode, I want you to call it the crazy human rather than the complete human.
I think they're one and the same.
It's very true.